What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here with a Saturday night edition of You Got Boston. Just got back from Washington, D.C., flew back today after being in D.C. since Wednesday night. And so thought that I would do a show just talking a little bit about my experiences, observations from being in Washington. We had a White House visit that I can definitely share more about. We had a shoot-around at Georgetown in which we spoke with Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown and kind of reflected on what that experience was like. And then obviously last night, NBA Cup game at Capital One Arena versus the Washington Wizards. Not the most fun game I've ever watched, but I think that there were some good things to draw from and some not as great things. And so in any case, that was kind of what the week looked like. I'm back in Boston today, off day for the Celtics. And then tomorrow, Celtics will take the Minnesota Timberwolves at home at 3:30 at TD Garden. So I'll have coverage from there. And then, as always, we'll have our post-game show, the Garden Report. And then they play again on Monday. So it's a busy 3 nights and 4 days schedule for the Celtics. Lots of fun, lots of things to talk about. And they're 13-3 on the season. And so I think for a lot of people have felt like, maybe they've had some not great quarters, some not great moments. I think there's things that haven't looked as sharp maybe as last year at points, but 13-3, second best record in the league. That's kind of the big takeaway. And Kristaps Porzingis posted a bunch of photos on Instagram today from his scrimmage with the Maine Celtics last week that we talked a little bit about last time. And so he's getting close. I think he's going to be back in the next couple of weeks, sooner rather than later. I would not be surprised if any day now he was listed as like questionable or probable or doubtful or something other than just out. So with that being said, I'm happy to talk today about the NBA Cup. I'm happy to talk about the White House visit, anything else, answer any questions you guys might have. And then, we can kind of do this whatever makes sense for you all. So appreciate those of you. I'm really starting to recognize names, which has been fun to kind of see the regular viewers, regular listeners. And then if you're watching this on a rewatch, you're welcome to leave comments in the YouTube comments, any questions you might have, and I'll answer them directly there. Twitter, sometimes I miss stuff. Usually I miss stuff. Blue Sky as well, but YouTube I'll always see because there's not many comments there, so I can always read through them. So let's talk about the White House trip. So thanks, Tom, for the question. What was your favorite anecdote from the White House trip? So I'll just kind of give a behind the scenes of what the White House trip was like on my end from just a reporter covering the event, and then I can share what we learned about it from the Celtics perspective. So I didn't really know what it was going to be like. I mentioned this to a couple people, but I was actually a lobbyist. I've been lobbying since I was in college, worked in the political sphere, worked on like plant-based foods and climate issues and a bunch of other things. So I always thought that if I was ever going to go to the White House, it was going to be through my political job. And so it was kind of ironic to be there with the Celtics covering their championship celebration. And it was a lot of fun. I was saying this to some people, but I feel like for the reporters, it was like kind of like a class field trip. Like we were all just hanging out. There wasn't really that much reporting to do. Like there wasn't that much media availability. We talked to Mike Zarin, one of the assistant general managers at the White House. And then we later had a Zoom where we spoke with Derek White, and then 2 of the Celtics owners, Wyc Grousbeck and Steve Pagliuca. But it was a Zoom because it was kind of like logistically really complicated and difficult to figure out how to get the media to talk to the players and like to have a space for it because the White House had like other things going on as well, which you might imagine. So basically they just told us we got like there was very little information in the days leading up to it. I wasn't even sure if like for sure we were going to be credentialed to go or if it was going to be one of those things that's like only some media members are credentialed, but they got back to us like the day before. I was going to be in DC regardless, so I was like, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And basically, we had to be there at 4:30, or the event started at 4:30. I was like, I'll just go 2 hours early just in case. And then I was there at 2:30, and because I didn't have my media pass, so I ended up just waiting outside for like hours. But it was really funny because every like 20 minutes, a different reporter would come in, and these are all like friends of mine, people that I've known for a long time now. And like a lot of them don't dress up. They don't usually wear like suit and tie. So it was funny to see everybody super decked out for the White House. And then after hours of waiting outside, like for really no good reason, I'm not even sure like what they were waiting for. Somebody came to get us and then we walked over. We went to the Rose Garden. And it was just like so many Massachusetts politicians, so many politicians in general. I think like a lot of Celtics fans and people that just like live in DC that were able to get credentialed, like maybe they cover politics or, maybe they're a state legislator that wanted to meet them and be a part of the celebration. So there's a lot of people that I know from actually like my other job, just being in politics. And then, yeah, the ceremony was really quick. Joe Biden introduced the team, gave like a 5-minute speech. It was pretty uneventful. I was kind of reading people's body language, trying to figure out if they were like getting a kick out of it or if they were finding it kind of cringe or like if they were enjoying it or whatnot. Like it was hard to gauge. And then, yeah, that was kind of it. So it was like really brief. Biden spoke and then Wyc Grousbeck spoke, and that was that. Like no players spoke. I thought that at certain points, like guys were kind of cracking up. And so that was funny to see. Like it seemed like they were getting a kick out of like maybe little moments there. And so, yeah, so that was fun. And I genuinely really enjoyed it. But there wasn't anything like, I'm trying to think of a favorite anecdote. Derek White told us later that Jaylen was getting like interested in learning the history of the White House, and so Secret Service was like giving him a history lesson, and then Jaylen talked about that after the fact and basically said like, yeah, it was really cool to be able to just learn it. I love history. He said, he just loves learning about the past and things, and so I think the players got to see the Oval Office. There was one funny line Steve Pagliuca said, I believe, that Derek White was in the Oval Office and he was like kind of eyeing Joe Biden's seat, and then he wanted to sit down, but he looked like he was going to sit down in Joe Biden's seat, but he did not. So nobody really said that much about it, honestly. Like every time they were asked any question about it, it was kind of just like, we want to, it was just a good thing to do as friends. Like I asked Jaylen Brown if he thought it was like a political decision to go or not to go, like just in general. I honestly, I don't know people's individual political beliefs, but I think for them, it was like, regardless of whether they like Biden or they like the president or the current administration, like it wasn't about that. It was just about going through the tradition and doing it as a team. And yeah, Jaylen Brown would get a history tour from Secret Service. Yeah, Derek White said he kind of tagged along. I thought Kristaps Porzingis seemed really excited to be there. Like he had like a huge grin on his face. He was cracking up a bunch. Luke Cornett also did. But I don't know. Those are guys that are like always pretty expressive. So it's not necessarily that this specific visit was like where that came out. Like it's possible that that's just how they always are. So because I'm trying to think like who looks really happy when they're at Celtics games, like Kristaps Porzingis. And then yeah, Jayson Tatum and Derek White like gave Joe Biden his jersey. And then Al looked really like he was taking it really seriously. Like at one point, I'm sure you guys have seen this clip, but like Joe Biden called the Celtics the Bulls. And I don't know if he did it on purpose or not. We were kind of debating that as in the media. Like some people were saying, obviously, I thought he was just misspoke and then he kind of laughed it off. But then some people thought he planned the joke. I don't know. But in any case, when that happened, and then Joe Biden was like, the Celtics, right? Al Horford was like trying to like help him along. Like it looked like he was like, yes, the Celtics. Like, so I think everyone had their own interpretation of it. But I guess the bottom line is that it really wasn't that eventful. Like it was, I'm glad I went. I've never been to the White House before. I want to cover the Celtics season. I go to everything. I go to practices, shoot-arounds, but like for an event, it was just brief. It was simple. And then there was a lot of stuff behind the scenes that we didn't see. Like they got a tour, there was a reception. But I think the most interesting point, I guess, about all this, or the thing that stuck out to me, is that it was clear that this was not a priority of theirs. They didn't even really think that much about it beforehand. I think that there's banner night, opening night, that's like a big deal. Everybody's thinking about it all summer. You want it, you envision that moment when you're competing for a championship. I don't think people are thinking like in the playoffs, like I can't wait for the White House visit. It's just not like the first thing people are thinking about. And so Wyc Grousbeck said, like, we weren't really focused on this. We were focused on opening night. Joe wants us to like move on to the next thing. He doesn't want us to just, stay in the past. But we did have a really good time, and even Joe had a really good time. So I think it was one of those things that maybe they weren't like dying to go weeks before, but when they were actually there, they enjoyed it. And I think honestly, like Jaylen had a funny answer. He said, like, I'd go to Waffle House with these guys, like even if it is a political decision or not, like the bottom line is we'll do anything together. And so I think that's the main thing that I took away, is just that they had fun just hanging out. And O'Shea Brissett was there. That was cool. I don't think anybody spoke with him. Maybe somebody did, but nothing's been reported yet. But O'Shea Brissett was there. He got his championship ring. He was not at opening night. I think he could have been. I think he was probably invited, from what I understand. But he joined them for the White House visit. I'm sure we'll get a vlog about it. So there'll be maybe some cool behind the scenes things that we haven't seen yet that O'Shea will post. And he got his ring. And then Joe Mazzulla said O'Shea Brissett is one of my favorite guys that I've ever coached. So people loved Brizzy. Like Jaylen Brown spoke about that. Guys were really happy to see him. Guys were really happy to reunite with him. I would almost say like that was one of the highlights for them of this trip. It seemed is just being reunited with him, and he made it so that every single returning player from last year was there, with the exception of Sima Hayek, who's on the Utah Jazz, who wasn't going to leave and join them, but he was the one guy that did not make it on the trip, and he'll get his ring. Like I think they come to Boston in March, so it'll be a little while before that happens. So yeah, that's the White House visit. I don't have too much more to say about it. I can say Derek White did a little Zoom call with us. He talked about how good the apple cider was. He said like I had never met a president before, so it was kind of cool to just like see a president in person. I think he was up there with like Porzingis as far as guys that seemed really genuinely excited by the opportunity, by the chance to do it. Maybe they'll be back next year, maybe they won't. We don't know. I don't know how teams will treat it, but regardless, I think they're focused on the next thing. And I don't know if that was the White House visit was part of why they came out a little bit flat on Friday. They did come out flat last night, and we can talk more about that. But and Jaylen Brown said post game, like that's certainly possible that had an impact on us. Maybe it was just a long day. It was just like an unusual day, a lot of standing around. They don't. It wasn't like their normal off day. I'm sure people have kind of their routine and everything. So I think that's it on the White House visit, unless there are any other questions. I had a great time. I always have a great time going on these trips. I was able to go now to the 2 Charlotte games, the New York game, and the Wizards games. I'm trying to go to as many away games as possible, and just to be able to give you guys coverage and to be able to be around the team. I think when you're on the road, you can kind of pick things up and see things a lot more than at home sometimes, and especially when there's not as much media. This trip had a lot of media because I think everybody wanted to go to the White House. And then, did it exceed my expectations? I think it met my expectations. I thought that there would be a little bit more going on, like from a media standpoint. But honestly, like sometimes it's nice to have less to cover. Like we already always have like so much happening. Like I felt like the night they won the championship, I wasn't able to fully enjoy it because I was like, there's a million interviews happening. There's guys I want to grab. There's press conferences. I want to post stuff. I want to write stuff. I want to video. Like usually there's like a lot going on. And from like a coverage standpoint, and this was one of those rare events where I was like, I'll just video this, I'll post it, I'll talk to the guys that we can talk to, but there wasn't like a lot happening, and the media was kind of like in a different area than the players and the politicians too, so we couldn't really just like interface with people as we pleased. Okay. I have not tried the Derek White beer, but it was funny to see him bring it to the podium after what game was that? After the win against Cleveland, and Jayson Tatum had his Gatorade, and Derek White had his Derek White Ale. So I have not tried it. It's really cool branding. I think it's super cool. Like I love when I don't even want to say role players because I do think Derek White's a star at this point, or at least like somewhere close to that. But I love when guys like the Boston guys like get their like local brand endorsements. Like Marcus Smart had his. I think it's a lot of fun. This is not a small market, so it's cool when guys get to benefit from the fact that they're so beloved in the city. And Derek White, it's hard to rank like who's the most beloved players, but there is a crowd pop when he comes out for warm-ups that is distinct, that is different than any other player coming out. So at least the people that come early for Celtics games to watch guys warm up, they love Derek White. And just want to send a quick message from our friends over at GameTime. GameTime is my favorite ticketing app. I talk about it all the time, but it's the best way to get tickets for anything, for concerts, sporting events. I mentioned tomorrow. Tomorrow's a great game. If you don't have any plans for your Sunday and you're thinking, maybe I'll check out a Celtics Timberwolves game. It's an opportunity to see a lot of fun stars. I think those games were really good last year. Last time the Timberwolves were in Boston and went into overtime, and Tatum had that crazy performance. In Minnesota as well. It was a phenomenal game. So you can check out GameTime. It's the best way to get all your tickets. You can check, there's all-in pricing, so you can toggle the feature. You can see the upfront cost. There's no surprise fees at checkout. So whatever price it says is the actual price that it is, and you have seat views. So whenever I buy someone Celtics tickets or any other events, you can actually see the panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. I like sitting like TV view. That's where the media seats usually are. Sometimes if I'm on the road, we get like corner views, but I think just to be able to see everything, it's best to get TV view. So this way you can pick that way. Lowest price guarantee, you get game time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Okay, so moving away from the White House visit and more towards maybe some of the other things that are front of mind for people, and in particular, I would imagine the on-court performance and just this most recent stretch of basketball, because they're winning games, but they're not winning games in a way that I think people are like sufficiently satisfied by, and that's a privileged place to be. But I do understand it, because there's been a lot of lackluster quarters and a lot of lackluster moments, and then they usually figure out how to come out on top. So Mike here asks, I know the Celtics have been winning, but this has been as bad of a stretch defensively as I think we've seen over the last 7 games or so. What's been your take on why they've struggled in that area? Mike continues, it's also weird because they're still a top 10 defense, but given how they've played versus the Wizards and Hawks and Nets, things have been a bit disturbing. So honestly, I think that there has been a lack of like individual defense that has plagued this team a little bit. Like, it's hard because you don't want to make excuses, but I do think like just honing in on guys, everybody is playing a little bit worse on the defensive end than they were last year. And I think it's probably a focus thing. It is November. They are playing against teams that are significantly worse than them on paper and in every way. And it's just human nature. Like, I was talking about this with a couple other reporters at Press Row yesterday. Like, you play 100 games a year. Like, they play 82 games plus playoffs. It's literally almost 100 games a year, if not more than that. Preseason, maybe they have an in-season tournament cup game. Like, it could end up being even more. So as much as it's like, why can't you have it every single night? Like, you can't, because you're doing it every other day, and I do think when you're looking at your schedule and you have the Hawks, Raptors, and Celtics and Wizards and Nets, like that's your stretch. I don't know that anybody's feeling super, super motivated and inspired, especially when they know they can turn it on. And we've seen that. I mean, the beginning of the Cleveland Cavaliers game, right from the jump, it was like, okay, this is a different defensive intensity than we've seen. And they said they didn't care about the 15-0 thing. They said they didn't care about the cup, or not they didn't care, but that wasn't going to be like a major change. And so, yeah, I think that's a part of it, is just like maybe overlooking opponents. It's a little bit of human nature. And then I guess a part of that also is the fact that these teams are really excited to play Boston. And so not only are you maybe overlooking them, but they're definitely not overlooking you. And this is their chance. Some of these teams get 2 games a year, 4 games a year where they're going to play the defending champs. And there's been this thing with Boston over the last few years, because they've been one of the best teams where there's always a little bit of a target on their back. It's a big market. There's a lot of stars. They've been close to winning before, but now they've actually done it. And the Nuggets talked about it last year, just like how hard it was to always be the hunted. How every single night was like a battle for them. And it's a big reason why they were not able to get the number 1 seed, and ultimately were not able to make the conference finals and repeat. The Celtics are experiencing that right now. I completely agree, Greg. The other teams have been stepping up. Like, every team that I've been watching these games like through a different lens that I used to when I was just like, oh, why are the Celtics not beating these teams that they're so much better than? Like, people are coming to play, and they're still finding ways. They're getting key stops and key moments. There's also like there's the undeniable question right now in the center position, where I think Nimi had a really good start to his tenure with the Indiana Pacers game, where he was massive. He had a couple other really good games there, and he's kind of been the presumptive backup when they're down somebody. So like when Al Horford was sick yesterday, Nimi started in his place. He started a couple of games now. I would imagine like maybe 4 or 5. But I do think that in general, like there's been some challenges with him. And so it's not even like that he's playing bad defense, which he has made some defensive mistakes that we've seen kind of time and again. But I think that with him, there is this element of like other guys don't, he doesn't have that comfort and familiarity with other guys as well, where like Al Horford does. And so, he might do something other people might not know to expect it. It's just been a lot more miscommunications than we're used to. So I'm not worried about the defense in the long term. I think Porzingis is going to really help for sure when he's in there. And also Al playing more extended minutes, but it is an individual defense thing. Like if you look at Jaylen Brown defensively versus last year, I think that he had a better defensive season last year than he's having so far right now. I think you could go down the line and find a lot of those guys. And it's not a reflection on like what they're capable of or what I expect from them in a few months. But yeah, that is what I've noticed so far, at least. And then last night's game, I thought they came out really flat, but also the Wizards were playing good. And then there was this moment in the third quarter where Joe Mazzulla got a technical foul. And he got the technical, and then even after getting the technical foul, he was being held back by Tony Dobbins, who's one of the Celtics assistant coaches, who I feel like the only time you ever really see him on the court during these games is when Joe Mazzulla is like fending off, is being held back from like arguing with the refs. The call came after Jaylen Brown, I believe, drove to the basket, didn't get a call, was fouled, and then it was fouled, but it wasn't called. And then Joe was really pissed off about it, was yelling, screaming, and then was being held back, got a tech. I thought he was going to get ejected, honestly. It almost looks like he wanted to get ejected. I don't want to be presumptive there, but that's kind of like, that's what I was thinking when I was watching it. And then, yeah, Bobby asked him about it post-game, and Joe said it changed the momentum, it changed the environment. Manipulating the environment was the exact term. Like, could you feel that? And we were kind of joking around about it after the game on the Garden Report. But honestly, like, I did feel a shift when Joe got his tech. And it's something that he's talked about both for himself and for the players, that it's not just arguing with refs, in his view, is not just inherently bad. I think it's about when you do it, how you do it, picking your spots, doing it strategically. And you can actually kind of leverage arguing with the refs in a way that can benefit your team. He's been open about it. I'm surprised that he talks about it, but he has. And so I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's real. I do think that sometimes they get makeup calls, or after he has one of those outbursts, and I realize, like, okay, the thing that he was mad about, he gets a few whistles in that direction. I mean, everybody knows about makeup calls, but yeah, it would have been funny. It was funny to see, and it was one of those moments where it was just like, we've seen it a couple of times now. We had one of those in Charlotte. He's had a few of those on the road, and I don't really know exactly what the mindset is there. If there's more to it, if he's really that mad. To me, I'm like, I think he's so in control of himself. Like, I don't think he's actually that mad, but yeah, Tony Dobbins has assumed the role. And I'm always, whenever I see it, I always pull my camera so everybody can see the video, because I don't know if the TV view sometimes doesn't stay on the situation that is unfolding, or like they go back and forth a bunch of different things. So whenever there's scenes like that, I try to make sure that I have like the footage of it. So in case it's interesting to people or something interesting happens, I usually post it right away, just in case it wasn't on the TV view. And I never know it's on the TV, because I'm very rarely watching the broadcast. But yeah, it helped them yesterday. They had a great fourth quarter. The big takeaway from the fourth quarter, I thought, was just the fact that Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown were kind of started hitting some big shots that weren't three-pointers. They had an abysmal shooting night collectively as a team, particularly the starters, and particularly Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Tatum was 0 for 10. Jaylen, I think, was 3 for 13 or 14. And a lot of them were good shots. A few of them were a little awkward shots. But in reality, I think just in general, like, they were off. And then in the fourth quarter, they just moved away from the three-point line and got some shots to go. There were mid-range shots, some drives to the basket. And it does make you feel like, okay, if you had done those earlier, like, it would have gotten them in rhythm earlier, and maybe would have even helped them make some of those threes, like just see the ball going through the basket. But I think more than anything, when they realized they needed to find a different shot profile, they were able to do that. And so that definitely stood out to me. And they ended up winning the game by 12, and point differential matters in the NBA Cup. So they got the 12-point win. To this moment, I have no idea why the Washington Wizards were fouling at the end of that game when they also are playing for point differential / just like the game was out of reach. I genuinely don't understand it. So yeah, it was very confusing to me, but it was helping the Celtics because they were all padding their individual stats, but also more importantly, they were padding their lead in that game, and they ended up winning by 12, which was their largest lead of the night. It was actually funny. I was sitting with Kari Thompson of Boston.com, and I'd asked him, like, in the third quarter, what's your prediction for how much they're going to win by? And he said 12, and then it was not looking like that was going to happen. And then with all the free throws, it ended up being exactly 12. So they helped him for his imaginary parlay that was not set. So actually, that's a good segue for a quick message from our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is kind of the most fun way, I think, that you can get real money on on sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You can just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. So you can pick any player. You can pick tomorrow, the Celtics game. You could do Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, how many points you're predicting for them. You can win 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get on action on sports for over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineup stays in play. Even if one of your players gets injured, it's been interesting. I don't want to jinx them, but there's been so many injuries around the league. I feel like every time I get a notification, it's just been an injury thing. So this is another way to protect at least your PrizePicks. You can't protect the players, unfortunately. But sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Okay, I'll do a couple more questions here and then we'll wrap up. Appreciate those of you for tuning in on a Saturday night for Celtics off night. I know that it's a busy schedule here. There's a lot going on, other NBA games. So I do appreciate those of you that decided to spend 30 minutes of your night tuning into this and getting your questions answered. And I'll be going most off days. Sometimes if I'm on transit or whatnot, I'm not always able to go, but got back today, figured I would go, clean up a little bit, went to the gym, and I was like, I'll go live, I'll answer some questions. So let's do Tom question about JB's playmaking. I think that he's continued to improve. Let me actually look up his exact numbers. I used to not be able to look things up during this because my computer was so bad, but I have a new computer now. Jaylen Brown this season is averaging 4.4 assists. Last year, 3.6 assists. So 4.4 is a career high for him. I don't want to say like that number perfectly captures what his playmaking is like, because I do think a lot of times there's potential assists, a lot of times it's just making the right read. But I do think that he's gotten better as a playmaker. Both him and Jayson Tatum have really stood out to me from a playmaking standpoint. And Tatum down the stretch, like in the clutch, has been so good. I think it's something that's not, I don't want to say started in the playoffs, but really took off in the playoffs. So that's been fun to watch. And I do think Tatum's going to get a triple-double this season. I have to say, like, to his credit, this is it. I don't mind if people do stat pad a little bit. Like Donovan Mitchell the other night got almost like lost the Cavs a game because he was trying to get an assist. And he apologized post game. He was like, I really wanted to get my first career triple-double, and he didn't. Tatum, and that's not even a shot at Donovan Mitchell. I thought that was a funny thing to admit, but Tatum has been really close to triple doubles so many times this season, but he is not looking at it. Like, he's really not trying to get one. If he's 2 rebounds short, there was, I forget which game, but a game a week or two ago, like he was 1 rebound short, and then Joe subbed him out with 2 minutes to play, and he asked him, do you want to come out? And he was like, sure. Like, hey, I don't think he cared. And so he's not hunting them. And a couple of times when he's been close, even last night, I think he was close. He's not going for it, but inevitably it's going to happen just naturally because he's just been such a good playmaker. We already know he's a prolific rebounder. The scoring's always going to be double digits for the most part. So it's just, the 10 assist night is the most elusive thing to get. The double digit rebounds, I think he gets very frequently. But he's going to get it this season for sure. And I do think, there's shades of LeBron in this passing. Like I don't want to overhype it, but I do think that he's made a massive leap on that. And it's probably the thing that stands out most over, his improvement over the last year or so. And I think in the playoffs, it was one of the top reasons why the Celtics were able to win the championship was just how much he improved as a playmaker, how much he was able to handle doubles, hedges, whatever it is. So, and I do agree. Greg here writes, I think the Celtics were sharper coming out of camp. I do agree on that. They were really sharp at the beginning, and I think there was a lull. The lull was really this most recent stretch, starting with Toronto, Brooklyn, Atlanta. Yeah, that was a tough stretch there. You have, you're playing 4 of the worst teams in the league. The Hawks haven't been that bad. And I think it's a mindset thing. I'm looking forward to them having a string of going on the West Coast road trip, playing some really good teams in a row, because I think you're gonna see that they elevate their intensity level. But we'll see. Just because you win a championship once doesn't mean you're going to do it again. We know that. So I don't want to say, I have unwavering faith right now because I have no reason not to. But I think Porzingis coming back is going to give them a little bit of a jolt. And then more, also just having higher profile games. The NBA Cup is not something that I'm personally that into. Like, I'm trying to get there because it's a part of it, but I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the fact that you're alternating cup games with non-cup games, and it just feels like, I don't know, just this loses momentum a little bit. Like, yesterday was a cup game, tomorrow is not. But I'm not obsessed with the NBA Cup. That being said, I would love for them to see NBA Cup success and go to Vegas and play those games because we want to see them play meaningful basketball with consequence. And this is one of those opportunities to do so. So we'll see. And yeah, like the flip the switch thing, you don't want to rely on that too much, but you've already seen that they can do it. And that's kind of what I'm referring to. I'll take a couple more questions here. Is there a chance that Porzingis comes back by the next Cavs game in early December? I think that's in 2 weeks. Or maybe even less. I think that might be in a week. So I don't think he's going to come back in the next week or two. Let me just pull up my calendar here. So the Cavs game is December 1st. That's in 8 days. I don't think he'll be back by then, but I would not be surprised if he was back in time for like the Christmas games. Maybe even the mid-season tournament. That's like the week of the 9th, that stretch. I would guess he's like 2 weeks away. Again, he scrimmaged, so he's playing basketball. And then, yeah, this is a good question from Ben. Because I think they have to hang the banner from my understanding. But it's like nobody wants, or like the average Boston fan doesn't want the Celtics to hang a in-season tournament banner with all the championship banners and the retired jerseys. So they'll hang it. The Lakers hung it, but I wonder if there's like a more discreet place or like some way where you can hang it, but also indicate like you don't really want to. So we shall see. Derek White, is he going to get a triple-double? He's less likely to than Tatum because I don't think the rebounding is oftentimes in double digits. And this, yeah, probably, maybe. I gotta look at everybody's like game logs here, just thinking off the top of my head. I feel like Tatum's been flirting with them. I don't remember Derek coming close. Okay, I think this is gonna be my last question. JD Davidson. JD Davidson, can he become a future replacement for our aging guards together with Pritchard? That's a great question. I would love to see that happen. He is absolutely dominating the G League right now. I know a lot of people don't watch the G League because there's already a million NBA games to watch and it's hard to keep up. That being said, if you do want to tune into a main Celtics game, they're a lot of fun to watch. You can see Baylor Shireman, who is the Celtics' first-round draft pick this year, first-round pick in a minute. You can see Anton Watson, Drew Peterson, one of the two-way players. He's been with them for a bit. And then JD Davidson is really the star of the show. He had 36 points, 11 assists the other night. He's been the best playmaker in the G League so far, one of the best scorers. Really an electric player, has figured out the game. He's just, when they say like Jayson Tatum just figured out the game, Jaylen Brown figured it out. He has mastered the game in the G League. And I know that's different than mastering the game on the Boston Celtics, but there's not a lot of players that play like him. He elevates everybody around him. He knows how to get his shots looked a lot smoother this year. Can he become a future replacement? I really don't know because honestly, he just hasn't played at the NBA level. So I don't want to say yes or no, but I'm gonna lean yes. I am a believer in JD. I think he's really, really close. I asked Howard Ashbrook, the main Celtics coach, about what's kind of holding him back, and he said he's so close to being there. So I think it's a matter of opportunity, becoming an even better three-point shooter because that's really like every NBA guard has to be a three-point shooter at this point. Like you really can't not be. And then defensively, like I think that he's going to have some similar limitations to Pritchard. He's not the defender that Pritchard is. So that's the big outstanding question. So next time I go to Maine, and I'll be there soon, but the main thing that I'm going to lock into is his defense, and I'll come back with a report from just watching that because I think that's the thing that's kind of holding him back. If anything is, the environment is awesome. I love going to the Portland Expo. I would go more if I could. Like last night I would have gone, but I was in DC. Tomorrow I would go, but I'm going to be at TD Garden. So a lot of times it overlaps with games. Last weekend I was at 2 games because they didn't overlap. So there's an opportunity to go. If you're living in New England and you want to go to a cheap Celtics game, but you can't get to TD Garden or you don't want to spend $100, you can go on GameTime and you can get main Celtics tickets for like a lot of times $20, and they're all really good seats, great environment, great atmosphere. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun answering your questions and just sharing a little bit more about the trip to DC. If there's anything else that you have questions about, feel free to put them in the comment section on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to CLNS Media, to CLNS All Access, and to my YouTube channel, You Got Boston, where you can see all these episodes. I'm trying to go live at least twice a week, if not more, depending on the schedule. So I'll be on live tomorrow with the Garden Report after the Minnesota Timberwolves take the Celtics at TD Garden. And then we get Monday night again. So who do they play Monday? They play the Clippers. So we got 2 fun games here, 2 good Western Conference opponents at TD Garden. And they won't flip the court in between, which is always fun for our post-game work session. So thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy your Saturday night, your Sunday. And I will see you all next time.